Recently, very important news has emerged about a space object collided with a house in Florida, and a lot of news. The first news with us says, NASA confirms object that slammed into Florida home was indeed space junk from the International Space Station. The mysterious object that crashed through the roof of a Florida home last month did indeed come from the International Space Station. That home, in the seaside city of Naples, belongs to Alejandro Otero. Shortly after the incident, Otero said he thought the offending object was part of a cargo pallet, packed with 2,630 kilograms of aging batteries. In March 2021, and he was right. According to a new NASA analysis of the object, which was performed at Florida's Kennedy Space Center. Based on the examination, the agency determined the debris to be a stanchion from the NASA flight support equipment used to mount the batteries on the cargo pallet. The cylindrical piece of space junk is made of a metallic alloy called inconel. It weighs 0.7 kg and measures 10 centimeters high by 4 centimeters wide. The nickel hydride batteries were dumped after new lithium-ion versions were delivered to the International Space Station for a power supply upgrade. The pallet and the batteries were expected to burn up completely in Earth's atmosphere. NASA officials said in today's update, yet that didn't happen. And the agency wants to learn why. The International Space Station will perform a detailed investigation of the jettison and re-entry analysis to determine the cause of the debris survival and to update modeling and analysis as needed. NASA specialists use engineering models to estimate how objects heat up and break apart during atmospheric re-entry. These models require detailed input parameters and are regularly updated when debris is found to have survived atmospheric re-entry to the ground. Otero's experience serves as a reminder that there's a tremendous amount of hardware whizzing over our head. According to the European Space Agency, Earth orbit hosts about 36,500 pieces of space junk, at least 10 centimeters wide, and a whopping 130 million objects, at least 1 millimeter in diameter. Even these tiny shards pose a danger to satellites and other orbiting assets, given the tremendous speeds at which they travel. For example, at 400 kilometers up, the average altitude of the ESS orbital velocity is about 27,400 kilometers per hour, and as has been demonstrated, some of this junk comes crashing back to Earth from time to time. For instance, the 23-ton core stages of China's powerful Long March 5BB rocket routinely fall in an uncontrolled fashion a week or so after their launches, to the consternation of the international space community. NASA's new analysis may have financial consequences for the agency and for Otero, by the way. I eagerly await communication from the responsible agencies, as their assistance is crucial in resolving the damages from this deliberate release. But more importantly, how in the future to arrange the payload so it will burn in its entirety as it re-enters.
The last news with us says, I flew Boeing's Starliner spacecraft in 4 different simulators. Houston. The commander of my spacecraft prepared for a steep spin next to the space station. Ray Bigoness, lead rendezvous officer for Boeing's new Starliner astronaut taxi, told my crew as he twisted the joystick. Luckily for us, we were not. Astronauts are preparing for future Starliner missions here at the Jake Garn Mission Simulator and Training Facility. In fact, they've been doing it for years. As Boeing ramps up its commercial crew vehicles for ISS missions, each crew will spend hundreds of hours inside simulators getting ready for their flights. JSC and Boeing officials showed reporters 4 different simulators in Houston on March 21st to get a sense of what real-life astronaut training is like. Both Boeing and SpaceX were awarded contracts in 2014 to send NASA astronauts to the space station to replace the agency's space shuttle, which retired in 2011. SpaceX first launched astronauts to the ISS in 2020, while Boeing's debut crewed effort has been delayed due to numerous technical issues. The long wait will be worth it for safety, Boeing and NASA repeatedly emphasized to reporters during our visit. And for the astronauts, any extra training time in the sim is a boon. Bigoness was helming a crew part task trainer at JSC for us to simulate docking and undocking with the ISS. Before he spun the spacecraft, the display showed our Starliner safely approaching the complex in an imaginary 7-degree cone. The cone was quite obviously displayed on the screen, making it easy to see that we were on course. With the exception of real buttons, this is exactly what it looks like. In fact, The display parts are exactly what the real displays are showing. Bigonès emphasized, "The mission designers try to take advantage of the universe in its ultimate elegance to bring the crew safely to the station. That means using the mathematics of orbital mechanics, or how things naturally move in space. Automatic controls can steer the spacecraft to a great extent, while the crew is trained to jump in if trouble arises." Bigonès demonstrated the translational hand controller that controls up, down, left, and right motions, along with a rotational hand controller that moves the spacecraft in pitch and roll directions. While it's tempting to space cowboy ourselves close to the space station, he said astronauts learn that nothing is fast in proximity operations, especially when a spacecraft is only 10 meters away from the space station. Bigonès said, "Things get really scary, real quick. That's why the spacecraft has so many backups, aside from the crew training. In fact, switching from autonomous to piloted flight takes several motions, swiping up on a switch that says Flight Controller, then raising the switch covers in 2 places to make the sticks hot or controllable." Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.